Let's move on 11 through 20 now. And JD, I'll ask you, what do you got 11 through 20?
So at 11, I have the Cardinals taking Michael Williams, the edge from Georgia. At 12, I have the Vikings taking Malachi Starks, safety from Georgia. At 13, I have the Bears taking Jonah Sava. We said it.
Savavite or Savania.
Sav-
Savania.
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 Interior offensive line from Arizona. And then I have at 14, the Browns taking Shadur Sanders, quarterback from Colorado.
Mm-hmm.
At 15, I have the Seahawks taking Nick Scorton, edge from Texas A&M. At 16, I have the Steelers taking Luther Burden III, wide receiver from Mizzou.
Mm-hmm.
At 17, I have the Chargers taking Kenneth Grant, defensive line, Michigan. At 18, I have the Bucks taking Abdul Carter, edge from Penn State. And at 19, I have the Dolphins taking Harold Perkins Jr., edge slash linebacker from LSU. And then at 20, I have the Falcons taking Denzel Burke, cornerback from The Ohio State University.
All right. For my 11 through 20, let me pull up our mock real quick. I've got Mason Graham, D line out of Michigan, going to the Cardinals at 11. Luther Burden, the third wide receiver from Mizzou, coming to my Minnesota Vikings. Skull. The Bears at 13, going with Nick Scorton out of Texas A&M, the edge rusher. The Browns going with, what is it? Tetaroa is what we said, McMillan, wide receiver out of Arizona. Seahawks at 15, going with Abdul Carter, edge rusher out of Penn State. The Steelers at 16, going with Emeka Egbuka, wide receiver from the Ohio State. Chargers at 13, going with, Deion Walker, D lineman out of Kentucky. Bucks at 18, going with Denzel Burke, cornerback out of the Ohio State University. 19, the Dolphins going with a Michigan man, Kenneth Grant, D lineman out of Michigan. And the Falcons, they're going to go at 20 with Harold Perkins Jr., linebacker slash edge rusher out of LSU. I got one bone to pick with you, JD, and it's really not a my bone. It's just, I think a lot of people are going to have this bone to pick with you. Just very quickly, Falcons at 20. This team we clowned on for not going with their biggest need of edge rusher in the first round last year. And what do you have? I know mine. Technically could be a linebacker more than an edge rusher, but he is listed as both. But you said, nope, screw that. We're going to go with a position completely different than edge rusher. So they're going to do it again. They're putting the need down the line.
Well, yeah, because their need is edge rusher. I mean, sure, they could draft a defensive tackle
They'll probably trade up.
as a pass rusher, but if you look at my board or my draft up to this point, the next best edge rusher, in my opinion, is JT Tumalau.
Same.
So, I mean, sure, I guess there's an argument you could have him going up to 20, but at this point in time, I don't think it makes sense. So with Denzel Burke, they're getting another very good cornerback, good range, lengthy corner, and they're adding to what could be with him an elite secondary with Jesse Bates at safety. So that was just kind of my thinking. It was just adding another weapon for that secondary.
Well, the real first team I want to talk about is the Cleveland Browns. And the reason why I want to start with them is we kind of talked about this in the first overall kind of or the top 10, I should say, of what we did. And it's the whole thing with the Browns of you've got Shadur Sanders, I've got McMillan out of Arizona. And here's the thing. I know that the discussion that we want to have is Deshaun Watson's not the guy, and they should go quarterback this year, right? That's what I'm thinking. That's what you're thinking?
Yeah.
Here's my thought with the Browns. Deshaun Watson is under contract for 2 more years after this one. 2024, 2025, 2026. They're voiding the rest of his contract. He'll be a free agent at 32 in 2027. Now, the question for the Browns is 3 questions. 1, will Deshaun Watson make it that far because of everything he's got going around with him? 2, do you want to draft a quarterback this year and have him sit under Deshaun Watson for 2 years? Or, and this is the option I think they're going to go with, they're going to be like, let Deshaun be Deshaun. We're in on Arch Manning when that time comes.
Yeah, well, clearly based off my pick, I think that they just say screw it and go Shadur.
You also have Shadur very low. I don't think he lasts outside the top 10.
Again, that's what I said, dude. I'm not high on him. I'm really not. So, I mean, you're probably right. I think realistically, he goes inside the top 10.
Yeah.
But I don't think he warrants that. So that's why I have him falling. But for the Browns, dude, Massage Watson here, he just caught another charge for sexual assault. Sorry for I should have given a trigger warning there, I guess. But
it is what it is.
But yeah, so I honestly feel like once we find out more information from that charge, that the Browns probably could have the right to just void the rest of his contract and release him.
That's what I meant by choice 1, by the way, of we don't know if he's going to make it to the end of that contract.
Okay, I thought you meant because he sucks. Because
no. I meant because of all. That's why I said all the stuff going on with him right now. You went into it. I just said stuff and left it at that.
Yeah, no, dude, I'll say this, and I'm not trying to be that guy, but I have zero respect for that guy. Like, absolutely none.
Why would you apologize for that?
But no, just because, like, some people,
you have the right to have your opinion.
No. Some people might be upset by, he said Massage Watson or whatever.
Who cares?
Like, nah. That's what I'm saying. So that's why I'm making it abundantly clear. I don't give a crap about people defending this guy.
I know you live right now in the Great White North where you can go to jail for saying things, but I live in the USA, baby.
Yeah.
You can have that opinion.
Yeah, but anyways,
USA.
back to the actual mock.
Yes.
Yeah, I feel like the Browns, assuming they're getting rid of Watson, who sucks, this will be again another quarterback that they're gonna kick the can on and see if they can get something out of him. And I mean, again, he has a very high upside, I think a low floor. So we'll see, but I think again, and plus, dude, the Browns like making money. That's what, like,
but
I know all these teams do, and I feel like again, Shadur will help sell jerseys. He'll help get excitement around the Browns, and that's I think again, I don't think the Browns are that dumb. I think they know that there's a bunch of negative things being said about them as an organization.
Yeah.
So they're gonna try and raise the vibes with getting somebody like Shadur.
So
and yeah,
couple things. 1, I just don't think it's realistic that Shadur makes it past 10. That's just me. That's why, like, we both had quarterback 1, 2. In my mind, that's Beck Shadur. Now, the second thing of why, like, you have Quinn Ewers, I'm going to be completely honest, and I will spoil the rest of my draft. Quinn Ewers is not showing up in this first round. The reason why is, and this is the caveat with it, is I have to wait and see what plays out at Texas. Because the way I'm looking at it, Arch is gonna arch out. He's gonna be Arch. Tom Brady is in Texas. He's in Austin. Quinn Ewers ain't gonna have a job when he's healthy. Because Arch is gonna take that thing. He's never gonna look back. So to me, I'm looking more on Quinn Ewers might not even be in this draft by the time we get to the end of the season, like we talked about earlier. And like with the Browns, it'll be a situation then of like, all right, Beck and Sanders are gone. Depending on how Cam Ward plays, I love Cam Ward. He's my favorite quarterback in this draft, but he hasn't done enough right now for me to warrant a 15th overall pick unless the need was like absolutely dire. Like I will say the first time I did it with the order that we had, I had Cam Ward in the first round. Who did I have him to though? I had Cam Ward to somebody in like this place or lower. But then after redoing it with the new order and how things fell out, like it just didn't make sense. Now he could play up into a first round. This is probably where his absolute highest of ceilings are, but he hasn't done it yet, and I don't know if he's gonna do it. So it's like the Browns. I think you sit there, and it's gonna be realistically, it'll be: do we reach for a quarterback, or do we go with another need? Which to me right now, they're two top needs. Well, top three needs. I'll throw in the third one. It's either wide receiver, offensive tackle, or D line. Mason Graham would have been great for them, but the Cardinals took him at 11. It's like they could go offensive tackle, but what the next offensive tackle that I have that's on the board right now is Emory Jones out of LSU. So it's like a little bit of a reach there. And to me, wide receiver, McMillan was sitting there, second wide receiver off the board. Let's go ahead and go with that because I also look at their wide receiver contracts. Amari Cooper, Elijah Moore, both of those are free agents after this year. Deshaun's going to need somebody to throw to next year if he's still the quarterback. Or if you draft a quarterback, they're going to need someone to throw to.
Yeah.
Jerry Jeudy will still be there, though.
I mean, but will he be there, though?
I mean, he's under contract at least.
Yeah, I mean, the guy's always hurt, though.
Yeah, true. So really they're losing Cooper, Jeudy, and Moore.
Yeah, I mean, but again, like, something I'm realizing as well with this draft, and I feel like this might be just a new norm. I feel like this is a pretty deep wide receiver class. Maybe it doesn't, like, well, I think it could have that elite top end of the wide receiver pool, but
I have the opposite thought only because last year's was so deep. That's why I think I have the thought of that it's not, but go ahead.
But yeah, I mean, there's guys like falling into the second round. Like
Mm-hmm.
I was struggling to put. I know we'll get to him later, but and it's a bit of a spoiler. But Agbuka, I was struggling to fit him into this first round. So that kind of just shows like some of these wide receivers could fall.
Yeah. Yeah, they could. I look at it and I go, and I know this could be a conversation more for Friday. Check out the draft room. Watch it live if you're a patron. Patron link down below, or it'll be out on Saturday as games are going on. But I just like, to me, Hunter, McMillan, Burden, bona fide first rounders. Emeka and Isaiah Bond, depending on if a team wants to go wide receiver. No. Here's the problem, though. You brought up Emeka, and that's why I'm going to bring this up. Emeka is not like the thing with last year, Xavier Worthy and Adonai Mitchell both went late in the first because like Xavier Worthy is fast. Adonai Mitchell is fast. Like these guys have skill sets and especially their speed that it's like, hey, we need that guy on this team. If they didn't have that, I don't know if Xavier Worthy goes in the first round.
Yeah. And that's and like that's kind of the that's the thing. I'm looking because like again, I'm looking at this and again, I could see somebody like Agbuka, Agbuka, like it's one of those things where he can either rise because of like his obviously his pure talent, or he can fall like into the second round, which will also push like the other top like our top wide receivers down.
Yeah. No, they could. It's just the Browns wide receiver like they could go with numerous things. I'm bringing this back to the Browns a little bit. Numerous things. It's just I don't know if they go a quarterback. That's the one thing. The one team that I will kind of pivot us to, JD, and I'm glad that I'm gonna be honest, you brought this team up. I
Yeah.
wasn't gonna say let's talk about them. You brought them up. It's da Bersh. I'm glad you kind of brought them up because you have them going with an offensive lineman. And before I ask you like your thought process with it, I was scrolling through Instagram Reels today and I came past, I don't know what the dude's name is. It's just local Chicago sports radio on the Score. And the guy basically said if you look at the Bears offensive line, right now they have Braxton Jones at left tackle, Tevin Jenkins left guard, Coleman Shelton at center, Nate Davis at right guard, and Darnell Wright at right tackle. He goes, you look at the Bears offensive line, they have guys that fit the same mold as like the type of player that Ryan Poles was, that Eberflus was. They weren't like Poles wasn't a guy that could live off talent. He had to live off of like his intelligence and being that smart guy. And it's like they don't have a guy on that offensive line that when he said it, I'm like, he kind of got a point. Kind of like an a-hole where it's like he's gonna be the bruiser. He's gonna be the guy that's just like, I'm a mean dude on that offensive line. And part of me is like, maybe that's just the Chicago, like, you know, the 85 Bears, they were tough. Football players used to be tough back in my day. Maybe it's a little bit of that because the guy that was on the Score has about 30 years on me. Looked like he had 30 years on me. So, like, take that with a grain of salt. But, like, he did have a point where he's like, it's coaching. And he's like, I don't get why Poles and Eberflus think that offensive tackle it's an intelligence position. He goes, it's not. It's a physical position. It's not an intelligence quarterback, yes. Physical. I want my linemen to be physical at the point of attack. And it seems like the Bears don't have that.
Yeah, I mean, and that's kind of like, I think it's more so they've taken risks that just haven't paid off. Like,
Yep.
Tevin Jenkins, I really liked him coming out of the draft, but his big issue was injuries, and he was coming off a back injury.
Yep.
Unfortunately for him, he's been hurt in the NFL, but when he's played, he's been really good.
Yeah.
And yeah, I mean, I feel like I forget. Do they still have James Daniels? Like, I was looking
Let me
at
see.
this.
I've got their depth chart up
Bears.
there. They do. If they do, he's not healthy. I don't think they do.
Because
No, he is not listed on their depth chart.
okay, yeah. So because I'm looking at it now, so they have Braxton Jones, who again, he had a high ceiling, coming out of high school and his early part of his college out of Ohio State.
Yeah.
Utah Southern.
You're thinking Braxton. What was it? Braxton Miller.
Yeah,
Ohio State.
yeah. Freaking stupid names. I'm on a roll today. But yeah, so he had high upside, I feel like, in an early part of his like college career, and it just kind of, he just didn't really improve much. But again, that was a 5th round pick in 2022. So you don't really expect much from them. And granted, credit to him, he's a starting offensive lineman in the NFL currently. But like, again, that's something you can upgrade on. Like I said, Tevin Jenkins, he's injured or questionable at least. And then Darnell Wright, again, I love that pick. That was a good pick, and he's played well. 1st round pick in 2023.
Yeah.
And great, you got that pick right. I mean, you still want him to develop, but whatever, good for you. But yeah, then besides that, like, besides basically Jenkins, again, great, like, good player, just hurt.
Mm-hmm.
You've taken a bunch of shots in the dark. You have Nate Davis, who I know you didn't draft him, but you brought him in, and I don't think he's starter quality, but
Mm-hmm.
he's forced to start on this offensive line. Um, and again, Bears fans, I know you have injuries currently,
Mm-hmm.
but that shows me two things. One being, well, your depth obviously sucks, and I mean, I can't blame you too heavily on that because most depth offensive linemen aren't great,
Mm-hmm.
but it's still part of the issue.
Yeah.
And then, like you said, they've tried to do these like high risk, high reward picks all the time. And the problem is you can't do that with every single one of your offensive lineman picks.
Mm-hmm.
You have to you at least have to take the safe guy, even if that's later in the draft. If it's somebody who doesn't have a high ceiling, but like he projects to be a average starter or a little above average, then
Mm-hmm.
okay, take that guy in like the third round.
Mm-hmm.
But again, it's like they've tried to take these big swings and it just hasn't worked out. So that's why for me, that's why I have them going. I'm just gonna call him Jonah from Arizona.
Oh, you're not gonna try that last name?
I already tried it, and you said it, and
Yeah,
I
it's Savania or
Sav
Savi. Yeah, Savania,
Saviana
I think it is. Jonah
Savania
Savania.
Jonah Savania. That's why I have him going to the Bears because I think he has an upside, a
Mm-hmm.
good upside, but he also, in my opinion, has a high floor. And like Sam in the Discord has been saying,
Mm-hmm.
the Bears' interior offensive line has been dog water. It's
Yep.
been horrible. And yes, again, the injuries, but you need to solidify that. Most people
Mm-hmm.
obviously just want to talk about tackles, but if you're going up against somebody like Chris Jones or any of the other elite defensive tackles,
Mm-hmm.
they're just going to eat you alive and you're going
Yeah.
to give your center zero help.
Yeah, I have a weird take here. And this is gonna sound like it's not gonna make sense, but I think it does. If the Bears are gonna go offensive line right now, they have Bears fans, if you want an offensive lineman, you gotta hope that this team sucks and they're in the top 10. Or you gotta hope they do well enough to be like 18, 19, 20 or later. Because I think that right now, any offensive lineman for me would have been a reach. And I know that like it's all Riggy, if you're getting the right guy, it's not a reach. But like for me, it's like I think in the middle ground, it's gonna be they have to reach on it. Now, yet again, and that's the caveat, all podcasts. We have a long way until April. A lot of time for things to change. This is just us getting kind of our thoughts on paper. But the last team here in the middle that I want to bring up is my Minnesota Vikings. Skull. JD, when I was going through my mock draft, after I made this pick, I had to take a little bit of a break from my mock. Got a little bit too excited, if you know what I mean. If Luther Burden is there and gets drafted to the Vikings, I'm gonna get a Luther Burden jersey. I know you mentioned you loved this guy before the season started. JD, 3 games in, I'm on that bandwagon. I'm on the Luther Burden bandwagon for the Mizzou Tigers. And like, this is now my wet dream of Jay Jett is on one side, Jordan Addison, DUI free, by the way. He's got to be DUI free. On the other side, and then right there in the slot, Luther Burden III. Tell me that doesn't pan out to be one of the best wide receiver cores in the NFL. Not day one, but eventually, as Luther Burden develops, oh man, mama, I'm about to make a name for myself. That gets me excited. Like, this is something too that, do the Vikings probably have bigger needs? Like maybe a cornerback? Maybe some defensive line? Like, if my board would have fell out differently, if the Vikings would have been at 11 and not 12, they don't make this pick. They go at Mason Graham. But because Mason Graham goes to the Cardinals at 11, because with cornerback, the next cornerback on my board was Denzel Burke, Luther Burden's the dude here. If he ends up being a Viking, I'll be the happiest fan in the world.
Yeah, no, it's a very good pick.
Mm-hmm.
For myself though, like, because I thought about that. Truthfully, I think the pick makes a lot of sense. Like, just BPA, you can make the argument. But for myself, I went with Malachi Starks, the safety from Georgia, because even though I mentioned earlier I don't see the value in taking a safety
Mm-hmm.
that high, I think on my big board, I do think he's very talented.
Yeah.
So I think you guys just like your offense has surprised me. Uh,
Mm-hmm.
I honestly, and I know your defense has also been pretty good, but
Mm-hmm.
I think if you have the ability to add somebody who again will be a day one starter and
Mm-hmm.
eventually an elite safety, I think you should take that type of swing and just and build the Vikings back to what they were known for and having an elite defense. And I think he could be a piece of that.
What would it be? Hmm. It doesn't have a good ring. MVGA. Make the Vikings great again. That's what I heard from you, JD. Make the MVGA. It doesn't roll off the tongue. Like there's no word. You can't say a word MVGA from it, but MVGA. See, it doesn't even. We got to work on that one. But all I could think about is from what you're saying is, oh, he's saying make the Vikings great again. I'm on top of it. Sam
Yeah.
Darnold, by the way, could be comeback player of the year.
Yeah, so far.
Do you want to hear an interesting stat about Sam Darnold before we move on?
Sure.
Sam Darnold 2-0 has brought the Vikings to 2-0 to start the year. Something that Kirk Cousins never did with the Vikings.
Dang. That's actually crazy.
He's better than Kirko. What can I say? As always, we'd like to thank the people that make these videos possible, our patrons whose names are displayed on the screen now. If you would like to become a patron, go ahead and click the Patreon icon in the bottom right. And if you'd like to check out another video from MVP Sports, hit the video in the upper left. As always, thanks for watching.